My wife said she needed alone time at our beach house. I believed her until I saw her car turn toward downtown instead of the coast. What I discovered next shattered 24 years of marriage and led to the most devastating confrontation of my life. She thought I'd never find out. She was wrong. My name is Alistair Vance. I'm 52 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had it figured out. 24 years married to my college sweetheart, 2 kids who made it through their 20s without rehab or jail, and a consulting firm that kept food on the table. I specialized in helping small businesses get their act together. Ironic considering I couldn't see my own house falling apart. The first red flag hit me on a Tuesday morning in March. Isabel was rushing around the kitchen when she announced she was driving to Sacramento to help her sister Clara with some family emergency. Nothing unusual there. Clara always had drama brewing. But when I offered to come along, Isabel's response felt different. No, Alistair, stay here and focus on work. This is women's business. Women's business. In 24 years, she'd never used that phrase. The way she said it, like reading from a rehearsed script, made my gut twist. She kissed my cheek, a quick peck that felt like a business transaction, and headed for the door. That's when I noticed she was wearing heels to help her sister move boxes. Right. I watched through the kitchen window as she backed out in her silver Lexus instead of turning left toward the Sacramento freeway. She turned right toward downtown Portland. My coffee went cold as I stood there, puzzle pieces starting to fall into place. The new gym membership she never used. How she guarded her phone like state secrets. Started doing laundry separately, claiming my work shirts were too rough for her delicates. That evening when she returned with perfectly styled hair and not a single moving day wrinkle, I asked how Clara was doing. Oh, you know, Clara, always dramatic about everything, Isabel replied. Here's the thing about being married over 2 decades. You develop radar for when someone's feeding you garbage. Right then, my radar was screaming louder than a smoke alarm. I didn't confront her that night. Maybe I should have. Instead, I did what any rational man would do when his world starts tilting. I started paying attention, real attention. Over the next weeks, I noticed things right under my nose. 20-minute bathroom trips with her phone. Quickly closing laptop screens when I walked into rooms. Sudden interest in yoga classes that didn't allow visitors. The breaking point came when our daughter Alara called, confused about why her mother canceled lunch plans again. 3rd time in 2 weeks. Dad, is Mom okay? She's been acting strange lately. Distant. Alara was 28, sharp as a tack, worked as a detective with Portland police. If she was picking up behavioral changes, I wasn't going crazy. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out exactly what was happening with my wife. I called Alara the next morning at her precinct. As a detective, she developed instincts about human behavior that most people never possess. If anyone could help me figure out what was happening without jumping to conclusions, it was her. Dad, you sound stressed, Alara said when she picked up. Everything okay? I need to ask you something about your mother. I need you to be completely honest with me. There was a pause. Then Alara's voice shifted into what I called her cop tone. Professional, alert. What's going on, Dad? I told her about the Sacramento trip that went downtown. The perfume, the sudden personality changes. As I spoke, I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. Dad, how long has this been happening? About 6 weeks now, maybe longer. I might have missed earlier signs. Alara was quiet for a moment. There's something I didn't mention when I called yesterday. When Mom canceled our lunch, she said she had to help a friend with relationship problems. But when I asked what friend, she got vague. Said it was someone from her yoga class. Your mother doesn't take yoga. That's what made it weird. She insisted she'd been going for months, but I've never seen a yoga mat in the house. No workout clothes that look used. My stomach dropped. The lies were multiplying, becoming more elaborate. Alara, I need another favor. Can you run a background check on someone without it being official? Depends on who and why. Dad, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? I took a deep breath. I think your mother might be having an affair. The silence stretched for so long. I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Alara spoke. I was hoping I was wrong, but some things have been bothering me. The way she acts when her phone buzzes. How she's always busy when we try to make plans. And last week when I stopped by the house, she had wine glasses in the sink. 2 of them. Middle of the afternoon on a Tuesday. She said she had a friend over. What friend? Dad. Mom's closest friends are Aunt Clara and Mrs. Patterson from church. Neither of them drink wine in the afternoon. That evening, I sat in my home office staring at client files. I couldn't focus. Around 8 o'clock, Isabel poked her head in. I'm meeting some girlfriends for dinner tomorrow night. Don't wait up. We might catch a late movie. She was wearing a new blouse I'd never seen before. Silk, expensive looking, the kind of thing she used to save for special occasions with me. Which girlfriends? I asked casually. Oh, you know, the usual group. Sophie, Monique, couple others. But Sophie lived in Denver now, and Monique was going through a messy divorce and hadn't been social in months. Another lie delivered with the same practiced smoothness as all the others. After Isabel went upstairs, I made 2 decisions. First, I was going to start documenting everything. Times, dates, stories, inconsistencies. Second, I was going to find out who this mystery man was. My 24-year marriage might be falling apart, but I wasn't going down without a fight, and I sure wasn't going to let some smooth player destroy my family without consequences. Over the next week, Elara and I worked like partners on a case. She taught me surveillance techniques that wouldn't land me in legal trouble. I provided the business connections to dig deeper into whoever was destroying my marriage. Dad, we need to be smart about this, Elara said during our coffee meeting at a diner downtown. If this goes to divorce court, we can't have evidence that was obtained illegally. What do you suggest? We follow the money first. Credit card statements, unusual expenses. Then we track patterns. When she goes out, where she says she's going versus where she actually ends up. I pulled out a manila folder I'd been building for 3 days. Already started. Look at this. Elara studied the credit card statements I printed. Her training caught things I'd missed. Dad, these restaurant charges aren't random. Look, Romano's Italian Bistro 3 times this month. Always Tuesday evenings, always 2 entrees. And this hotel charge at the Riverside Inn, just for drinks in a lounge, but expensive drinks. The same place twice in 2 weeks. Exactly. She's not even trying to hide the spending. Either she thinks you're not paying attention or she wants to get caught. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabel. Working late tonight. Client dinner ran long. Don't wait up. I showed Elara the message. She frowned. Dad, didn't you tell me Mom doesn't work anymore? She quit her part-time job at the boutique 6 months ago. Said she wanted to focus on volunteer work. Elara leaned back in the booth, her detective instincts fully engaged. We need to find out who this guy is. Based on the spending patterns and locations, he's not some random affair. This looks like someone with money, someone established. How do we identify him? Leave that to me. I have resources you don't. That evening, Isabel came home at 11:30, smelling like expensive cologne and wine. She kissed my forehead absently and headed straight for the shower. While she was upstairs, I checked her purse. Tucked inside her wallet behind her credit cards was a business card for Ashford Financial Consulting. The name Julian Ashford was embossed in gold letters. I photographed it with my phone and texted it to Elara immediately. 30 minutes later, she called back. Dad, we've got him. Julian Ashford, 51 years old, owns a financial consulting firm downtown, married to Vivian Ashford for 18 years, 2 kids. And, Dad, his office is 3 blocks from Romano's Italian Bistro. My hands were shaking as I held the phone. What else? I ran a basic background check. Clean record. But here's the interesting part. His wife filed a domestic disturbance complaint 2 months ago, then withdrew it the next day. Could be nothing. Could be marriage problems. Elara, I need you to do something for me that might cross some lines. What kind of lines? I want to contact his wife. If she's dealing with the same thing I am, she deserves to know. And if we're both being played by the same people, maybe we can help each other. There was a long pause. Dad, are you sure about this? Once you make that call, there's no going back. I looked upstairs toward our bedroom where my wife was probably erasing text messages and planning tomorrow's lies. There's already no going back. Finding Vivian Ashford's phone number took Elara less than 24 hours. Professional databases had their advantages, even when used for personal purposes. I stared at the number on my phone for 2 hours before finding the courage to dial. What exactly do you say to a stranger whose husband is sleeping with your wife? She answered on the third ring. Her voice was cautious, guarded. Hello, Mrs. Ashford. My name is Alistair Vance. I believe we need to talk about our spouses. The silence stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. Finally, she spoke and her voice was steady, resigned. I was wondering when you'd call. Julian's been careless lately. You know about the affair? I've suspected for months, but suspecting and proving are different things. May I ask what evidence you have? Her direct approach surprised me. No tears, no denial, just practical questions. Credit card receipts, inconsistent stories, behavior changes. My daughter is a detective. She helped me piece together a timeline. Your daughter is law enforcement. Vivian's voice sharpened with interest. That's useful. I work in corporate human resources. I understand documentation. We agreed to meet the next day at a coffee shop neither of our spouses would frequent. When I saw Vivian walk in, I understood immediately why Julian might have strayed. She was professional, composed, attractive in an understated way. But there was something broken in her eyes, a weariness that spoke of months of betrayal. Mr. Vance, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for reaching out. This situation has been eating me alive. We sat in a corner booth and Vivian opened a leather portfolio. I've been documenting everything for weeks, she said. Julian thinks I'm naive, but 18 years of marriage teaches you to read the signs. He's been lying about client meetings, staying late at the office, taking mysterious phone calls. What convinced you it was an affair? 2 weeks ago, I found hotel receipts in his jacket pocket, the Riverside, and multiple visits. When I confronted him, he claimed they were client entertainment expenses, but the receipts showed bar charges, not business dinners. I pulled out my folder. My wife has been going to the same hotel. Same time frames as your husband's receipts. Vivian studied my documentation with professional thoroughness. Alistair, we have enough here to confront them both, but I think we should be strategic about it. If this ends in divorce, we want to be in the strongest possible position. What do you have in mind? My daughter Serafina is 30 years old, works as a private investigator. Between your detective daughter and my PI daughter, we could build an airtight case. You're not emotional about this at all, are you? Vivian's smile was cold. I used to be. For the first month, I cried myself to sleep every night. But anger is more productive than grief, Alistair, and I'm very good at channeling anger into results. I found myself respecting this woman's steel. She'd been betrayed just like me. But instead of falling apart, she was planning a counterattack. What's our next move? We document everything. Every lie, every meeting, every expense. We let them think they're getting away with it while we build our case. And when we're ready, we end both affairs simultaneously. Vivian's smile turned predatory. We catch them in the act. Make it impossible for them to deny or minimize what they've done. But we do it smart, legal, devastating. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had an ally instead of just a victim. 3 weeks into our alliance, Vivian and I had transformed from victims into investigators. Our daughters worked together like seasoned partners. Alara's police resources combined with Serafina's private investigation skills created a surveillance network that would make the FBI proud. Dad, we got them mapped out completely, Alara reported during our Tuesday morning briefing in my office. Every Tuesday and Friday, same pattern. Julian picks up Mom at the Riverside and parking lot at 7:30. They go to dinner at Romano's, then back to his car for what Serafina calls extended conversation. How extended? 2 hours minimum. And, Dad, there's something else. Serafina discovered Julian has been telling his wife he's working late on client projects, but his office building security cameras show him leaving at normal time both nights. Vivian nodded grimly. Julian thinks he's being clever. Last Friday, he told me he had to review financial portfolios until midnight, but I know his assistant schedules those reviews weeks in advance. My phone buzzed with Isabel's daily text. Yoga class tonight, then dinner with Sophie. Home late. I showed it to the group. Alara snorted. Sophie moved to Denver 6 months ago. Mom's not even trying anymore. That's good for us, Serafina said. Sloppy lies make better evidence. Vivian pulled out a calendar. I think it's time for phase 2. This Friday, both our spouses will think they're meeting for their usual romantic evening. Instead, they're going to get the surprise of their lives. What's the plan? Julian always takes me out to dinner on Saturdays to make up for his late work nights, Vivian explained. This Saturday, I'm going to suggest we try Romano's. I'll tell him I heard they have excellent food. I caught on immediately. You want to catch them at their regular spot? Exactly. But not just catch them, document everything. Serafina will be there with professional recording equipment. We'll have video evidence of them together in their favorite restaurant. Alara frowned. That's public humiliation. Are you sure you want to go that route? They humiliated us first, I said. For months they've been laughing behind our backs, thinking we're too stupid to notice. Time to return the favor. Vivian's expression was ice cold. Julian has always underestimated me. He thinks because I work in HR, I'm soft, emotional, easily manipulated. He's about to learn otherwise. What about after the restaurant? That's where your beach house comes in, Alistair. I know Isabel has been talking about wanting to spend a weekend there. Maybe it's time you suggested a romantic getaway. My blood ran cold. You want me to send her there with him? No. I want to be there first, with me, with our daughters, with recording equipment. Let them walk into their perfect romantic setting, only to discover they're not alone. The plan was audacious, dangerous, and absolutely perfect. For too long, I'd been reacting to their moves. Now, it was time to control the game. When do we do this? Julian mentioned wanting to get away somewhere quiet next Friday. I'll suggest he take a personal day. Meanwhile, you'll tell Isabel you're going to be out of town. What if they don't go to the beach house? Vivian smiled coldly. Trust me, they will. I know exactly how to plant the idea in Julian's mind without him realizing it came from me. For the first time in months, I felt like I was back in control of my own life. Friday morning, I loaded my car with overnight bags and drove toward the coast. Officially, I was visiting my brother in Seattle for the weekend. In reality, I was about to stage the most important confrontation of my life. The beach house sat on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, surrounded by pine trees and accessible only by a winding dirt road. Isabel and I had bought it 15 years ago as our retreat from the world. Now it was about to become the setting for our marriage's final scene. Vivian arrived an hour after me, followed by Alara and Serafina in separate cars. We planned this like a military operation. Multiple vehicles, communication equipment, documented evidence of everything. Dad, are you absolutely sure about this? Alara asked as we unloaded surveillance equipment. Once we do this, there's no going back. There's already no going back, I replied. Your mother chose her path months ago. Serafina had set up cameras in the main living area, angled to capture the entire room without being obvious. The audio equipment was hidden in a decorative bowl on the coffee table. They'll never notice unless they're specifically looking for surveillance gear, she assured us. Vivian was studying the house layout like a general planning a battle. Alistair, where will they most likely spend their time? The deck overlooking the ocean. It's always been Isabel's favorite spot. Perfect. We'll position ourselves in the guest bedroom. It has a clear view of the deck through those windows, and they won't be able to see us. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabel. Decided to drive to the coast for some alone time. Don't worry about me. She's coming, I announced. Probably won't be here for another 2 hours. We spent the time preparing our positions, testing equipment, and going over the confrontation plan. The idea wasn't to surprise them immediately. We wanted to record their conversation first, gather evidence of their affair in their own words. Remember, we stay hidden until they've had time to relax and start talking honestly, Vivian instructed. People say things when they think they're alone that they'd never admit under questioning. At 4:30, we heard car doors slamming in the driveway. Through the window, I watched my wife walk toward the house she thought was empty, carrying an overnight bag and wearing the kind of dress she used to save for our anniversary dinners. Julian was with her, looking around admiringly at the property he thought he was secretly enjoying. God, Isabel, this place is incredible, I heard him say as they climbed the front steps. I can't believe your husband never uses it. Alistair's too busy with his business clients to appreciate beauty, Isabel replied. He wouldn't understand what this place means to people like us. People like us. The phrase hit me like a physical blow. They entered the house, and I watched through the bedroom window as they moved onto the deck with wine glasses, completely relaxed, completely confident they were alone. That's when Vivian squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "Now we find out who they really are when they think no one's listening." I followed Vivian out of the guest bedroom, my heart hammering against my ribs. Through the living room window, we could see Isabel and Julian on the deck, wine glasses in hand, completely absorbed in their romantic fantasy. Vivian reached the sliding glass door first. She paused, hand on the handle, and looked back at me. "Alistair, are you ready for this?" I nodded, though every muscle in my body felt coiled like a spring. She opened the door and stepped onto the deck. "Hello, Julian." The effect was immediate and devastating. Julian's wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the wooden planks. Isabel spun around so fast she nearly fell off her chair, her face going white as winter. "Vivian," Julian stammered. "What? How did you find you?" "It wasn't difficult. You've been remarkably careless about covering your tracks." I stepped out beside Vivian. "Hello, Isabel." My wife's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. No words came out, just this strangled sound of pure panic. "Alistair," she finally whispered, "you said you were in Seattle." I lied, just like you've been lying for months. Julian was trying to regain his composure, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "Look, this isn't what it looks like." "Really?" Vivian's voice could have cut glass. "Because it looks like my husband of 18 years is having an affair with another man's wife in what they thought was a secret romantic getaway." Alara and Serafina emerged from the guest room, carrying recording equipment. Isabel's face went from white to green when she saw her own daughter. "Alara, you're part of this?" "I'm part of protecting Dad from your lies," Alara replied coldly. "We have everything recorded, Mom. Every conversation you just had about leaving Dad and building a real life with Julian." Julian stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "Vivian, let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you brought my son to this house during one of your affairs. How you've been lying about client meetings while you wine and dine another man's wife." "Wait," I interrupted. "He brought Gabriel here?" Vivian nodded grimly. 2 months ago, Julian told me it was a father-son bonding trip, but I suspect he was actually meeting Isabel and wanted to show off the house. The betrayal hit deeper than I thought possible. Not only had they violated my marriage, they dragged an innocent 10-year-old into their deception. Isabel finally found her voice. "Alistair, please, let's talk about this privately." "No," I said firmly. "No more private conversations, no more lies. We're going to settle this right here, right now, in front of everyone." "The recordings are admissible in divorce proceedings," Serafina added professionally. "You both discussed abandoning your spouses and planning a future together. That's pretty clear evidence of intent." Julian's businessman facade finally collapsed completely. "Vivian, our marriage was already over. You know it was. Our marriage was over the moment you decided another woman was more important than your family," Vivian replied. "But you were too cowardly to end it honestly. Instead, you chose to sneak around like a teenager." "And you?" I turned to Isabel. 24 years of marriage, and this is how you repay everything we've built together?" My wife's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. "Alistair, you don't understand. Julian makes me feel alive again." "Julian makes you feel like an adulteress," I corrected. "Because that's what you are." The deck fell silent except for the sound of waves hitting the rocks below. Finally, Vivian spoke. "Julian, I want you out of my house by tomorrow night. Take whatever clothes you need and nothing else. My attorney will contact you Monday morning about divorce proceedings." "Isabel," I added, "the same goes for you. This marriage is over." 3 hours later, Julian and Isabel drove away from the beach house in separate cars. Their romantic weekend destroyed, their secret affair exposed, their marriages ended. Vivian and I stood on the deck, watching their taillights disappear into the forest. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Empty, angry, relieved, all at the same time." Alara joined us on the deck, her professional demeanor softening now that the confrontation was over. Dad, I'm proud of how you handled that. You stayed calm, stated facts, didn't let them manipulate you with tears or excuses. Your mother looked shocked that you were involved. She should be shocked. For months, she's been lying to all of us, sneaking around, betraying everything our family stands for. Did she think we'd just ignore it forever? Serafina was packing up the recording equipment. Mr. Vance, you have enough evidence to ensure a favorable divorce settlement. Your wife can't claim this was mutual or that you drove her away. We have her own words admitting the affair and planning to leave you. Vivian was staring out at the ocean. 18 years of marriage, and I never truly knew the man I was living with. He was willing to involve our son in his deception. That's unforgivable. What will you tell Gabriel? The truth in age-appropriate terms. That his father made choices that hurt our family, and sometimes adults have to face consequences for their actions. I won't lie to protect Julian's reputation. My phone buzzed with a text from my son Marcus in Portland. Dad, Alara told me what happened. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to drive down? I showed the message to the group. Alara smiled sadly. Marcus always suspected something was wrong. He said Mom had been acting weird during her last few phone calls. Distracted and secretive. Both your children knew something was wrong before you did, Vivian observed. That says something about your relationship with them. They trust me to handle problems honestly instead of pretending everything is fine when it's not. We spent the rest of the evening planning practical next steps. Divorce attorneys, property division, custody arrangements for Vivian's younger son. The logistics of untangling 2 decades of shared life felt overwhelming, but also necessary. Alistair, I want you to know this experience has shown me something important, Vivian said as we prepared to leave Sunday morning. Not all men are like Julian. You could have handled this with anger and violence, but you chose investigation and confrontation. You treated me like an equal partner instead of an emotional victim. You did the same for me. We both deserved better than what we got. But at least now we know the truth, and we can make decisions based on reality instead of lies. Driving home alone, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The marriage was over, but the uncertainty was over, too. No more wondering if I was imagining things. No more questioning my own sanity. No more pretending everything was normal when it wasn't. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. It was Marcus. Dad, I'm here waiting for you. Figured you shouldn't come home to an empty house after everything that happened. Thanks, son. That means more than you know. Dad, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. Mom made her choice, and you made yours. Now we all have to live with the consequences. Walking into my house with my son beside me, I realized that while I'd lost a wife, I kept something more valuable. My integrity, my relationship with my children, and my self-respect. Sometimes that's the best outcome you can hope for. 8 months after the beach house confrontation, I was sitting in my renovated home office when Marcus called with news that changed everything. Dad, you need to know something about Julian Ashford. He's been arrested for financial fraud. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. What kind of fraud? Embezzlement from his consulting firm. Apparently, he's been stealing client funds for over a year. The FBI raided his office yesterday. The irony was staggering. While I'd been worried about Julian stealing my wife, he'd actually been stealing money from his own clients. How much are we talking about? $2.7 million. Dad, this explains why he could afford all those expensive dinners and hotel stays. He wasn't successful. He was a criminal. I called Vivian immediately to share the news. She listened in stunned silence. Alistair, this means our children dodged a bullet. Imagine if we'd ignored the affairs, stayed married, and then discovered our spouses were planning futures with a felon. Have you heard from Isabel? She called yesterday crying. Apparently, Julian's been arrested. Their relationship is over, and she's facing financial ruin because she co-signed a lease on an apartment with him. The news should have made me feel vindicated, but mostly I felt sorry for everyone involved. Alara stopped by that evening to check on me. Dad, how do you feel about Mom's situation? Sad for her. Grateful it's not my problem anymore. That's mature of you. A lot of men would be celebrating. Your mother made her choices. Julian made his. I made mine. Everyone gets to live with the consequences. Speaking of consequences, I have some good news. Remember Vivian's daughter, Serafina? I nodded. Serafina had been professional and competent during our investigation. She's starting her own private investigation firm and asked if I'd consider leaving the police department to be her partner. Equal ownership, specializing in corporate fraud and domestic cases. That sounds like an incredible opportunity. It is. And, Dad, working with her during your situation showed me how much I enjoy investigation work that actually helps people instead of just processing crime scenes. 6 weeks later, I attended the grand opening of Vance Ashford Investigations. Watching my daughter launch her own business with Vivian's daughter felt like something positive emerging from all the wreckage. Vivian was there with her son, Gabriel, who seemed to be adjusting well to his parents' divorce. Alistair, I wanted to thank you again, Vivian said. If you hadn't called me that day, I might have spent years living with a criminal. We helped each other. That's what partners do. Partners, I laughed. Business partners, investigation partners. Maybe someday we'll figure out if there's anything else worth exploring. It wasn't a romantic declaration, but it was honest. After 24 years of marriage built on assumptions and comfortable lies, honesty felt refreshing. Driving home that night, I realized something important. The beach house confrontation hadn't just ended my marriage. It had started a new chapter where truth mattered more than comfort, where my children were my closest allies, and where unexpected partnerships could grow into something meaningful. Not bad for a man who'd thought his life was over 8 months ago. 1 year after my divorce was finalized, I stood in the renovated beach house preparing to host Thanksgiving dinner for the first time as a single man. The place looked completely different. Fresh paint, new furniture, all traces of Isabel's decorative choices replaced with clean, masculine simplicity. Marcus arrived first, carrying flowers and a bottle of wine. Dad, this place looks incredible, like a completely different house. It is a completely different house. Different purpose, different memories, different future. Alara and her partner arrived next, followed by Vivian, Gabriel, and Serafina. We'd become an unlikely extended family, bonded by shared experience and mutual respect. Alistair, I brought something I thought you should see, Vivian said, handing me a newspaper clipping. The headline read, Local financial consultant sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Julian got 8 years for embezzlement. The article says he showed no remorse and blamed his victims for trusting him with their money. Gabriel, now 11 and surprisingly mature, looked up from his plate. Mom, are you sad about Dad going to prison? I'm sad that he made choices that hurt so many people, but I'm not sad that he's facing consequences for those choices. That's a healthy way to look at it, Alara observed. Actions have results, and adults are responsible for both. As we sat around the dinner table, I realized how much my life had improved since ending my marriage. My business was thriving. My relationships with my children were stronger than ever, and I'd learned to value honesty over harmony. Dad, I have an announcement, Marcus said, raising his wine glass. I'm getting married next spring. Sophie and I want to have the ceremony here at the beach house if that's okay with you. The request caught me off guard, but in a good way. Of course, I can't think of a better use for this place. Also, we want Vivian to help plan it. She has incredible taste, and honestly, she's become like family to all of us. Vivian smiled. I'd be honored to help. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Vivian and I walked along the beach below the house. Alistair, can I ask you something personal? After everything we've been through together, I think you've earned the right to ask personal questions. Do you ever regret how we handled the confrontation? Some people think we were too harsh. I considered her question carefully. No regrets. We gave them opportunities to end their affairs honestly. They chose to keep lying, keep betraying their families, keep planning to abandon their spouses without warning. We simply forced them to face the consequences of choices they'd already made. I feel the same way. Julian and Isabel weren't victims. They were adults who made deliberate decisions to hurt the people who love them most. And now we're adults making different decisions, better decisions. Vivian stopped walking and looked at me directly. Alistair, I want you to know that this friendship we've built means everything to me. You've shown me that not all men are selfish and dishonest. You've shown me that trust can be rebuilt, even after betrayal. We stood there watching waves roll in under the moonlight. Two people who'd lost their marriages, but found something more valuable. Self-respect, honest relationships, and the knowledge that they could survive anything life threw at them. The beach house had been the setting for the end of my first marriage. Now it was becoming the foundation for whatever came next.